to the future now that I'm a little older. But I like the idea that how dark everything changed just from one event, right? Like just from Biff getting access to being able to make money, and this is how dark the world ends up becoming. It's that, that theory that they talk about all the time, the butterfly in Asia makes it rain in New York City or whatever when they talk about
the butterfly effect, yeah.
The butterfly effect, right? So, but I like that a lot, and I think it's really funny when he he doesn't, I don't remember bars on this. Like, it is kind of weird, again, that they don't notice anything until that late, right? Like, when they're driving around, there's, body
there's graffiti
marks on the ground.
Everywhere, yeah.
But, when he breaks into the house and there's, this black family in there, and he's like, they're just screaming
What you in
at
my
him.
daughter's bedroom?
I can get you, sucker.
Well, I mean, and, we pointed out at the end of the first film, wait, there's some really rich, successful family now, but they're still living in the same house. Yeah. So, I mean, this one actually played with that. And you're right. And that goes to them having fun with the time travel, right? Like, if we're going to have a franchise about time travel, we got to have some time travel shenanigans here where something goes wrong, something has to be fixed, but, on a more crazy scale than even in the first film. And I think this really delivers on that. I guess one of my favorite parts of the alternate 1985 though is Strickland, right? The principal. He's like, yes. I don't know you, but you look like a slacker.
They just shoot him down. It's like, if he's not the principal and the school's been closed,
why do they
years,
hate him? Yeah.
Why are they trying to shoot him down? Right? Like, too much detention 6 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, but again, all this works because this is a comedy in a franchise. It's not comedy first. But that is one of the pillars of Back to the Future is this is comedy. Comedic elements. A lighthearted, comedic fare, family fun film, right? So it's really over the top, right? But Biff's Pleasure Paradise.
Well, we got to talk about the best part, which is the franchise fatigue connection with the movie that Biff's watching in the hot tub.
Yes. And I think I even said this in our podcast, right? But my only exposure to... the Fistful of Dollars at the time before I watched it for this podcast was Biff watching it in Back to the Future Part 2.
Me
and then,
too.
Of course, Marty doing the same trick when it comes to him surviving a shootout in the Old West. So, again, those little Easter eggs, right? Spoilers for Back to the Future Part 3, movie that's been out for, 30 years. That is a cool... because you're not thinking about, that's going to pay off. In the next movie, right? It's just kind of there. And those are the best Easter eggs. They're just there. They exist. They don't draw too much attention to themselves, but when you watch it back, you're like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. I love how they connected the dots there. So,
I don't know if you caught, but did you catch that? So Marty took the matches, and in the past they turned, and those were the matches that Biff was so proud of at the beginning. When he's flying away.
Yeah, I just got my new matchbooks, Marty. Yeah. And, that because again, although they do kind of break some of the rules of time travel, they do keep some of the rules, right? These objects are signifiers of what's going on, when and where, and that is the attention to detail we've been talking about with this franchise. Even though they play fast and loose with some of the rules, they keep the headlines and the matches, and hey, they use those matches to burn the sports almanac, so it makes sense that he would have them. So anyway, that smart attention to detail is still there. I don't think it was a factor of laziness or something with this one, right? It's just there was a lot going on. They had to juggle. They wanted to do something ambitious. Didn't quite hit the home run they did last time, but it's still a heck of a fun ride. And more adventures with Doc and Marty, right? I mean, that's what we wanted to see, and that's what we got, going around in time periods, but still keeping it focused on their family, the McFly family, Hill Valley, right? And not just, we're going to go to dinosaur times. Why, right? That, of course, they do the animated show that we reference. That's the kind of stuff they do on the cartoon.
Is it?
We're going to go to ancient Rome, right? Because that's what you do, right? But I think that was smart. And like you said, Brandon, the whole, everything repeats itself. It's like poetry, it rhymes. George Lucas.
Exactly.
It works. It works for this trilogy, right? Even, and this is something I had forgotten about, every one of these movies, and we'll get into the third one as well, has Marty waking up at some point to someone he thinks is his mom. and they play it for 30 seconds. He's like, oh, you're back on the good old 27th floor. He's like, 27th floor. And in the first one, obviously, he thought 1955 mom was his 1985 mom, and that happens again in part 3 with his ancestors. But we'll get into that. But
this has been a fun discussion. I'm really glad we're revisiting these. I really did love this movie. But Zach, I think you got a couple of questions for me.
I do, Brandon. How many great Scots do you think are said in this film?
2.
You're going with 2 great Scots.
I didn't count.
You knew this question was coming.
I was too captivated by the movie. I was too caught up in what was going on.
So there are actually 6 occasions of great Scott, all said by Doc Brown. 1985, Doc says it 5 times, and 1955, Doc says it once. Of course, at the end when he faints at the end. And what I really think is one of the greatest movie endings of all time.
Yes, right? It is a good ending. It is.
To be concluded, an interesting, not to be continued, which is what I've seen in every other movie or TV show that does this, but to be concluded. So a bold claim to say we're going to do one more and that's it, but that's the MO, the Back to the Future trilogy, and I applaud them for it. So.
Applaud them, yes, absolutely. Well, now let me ask you this question here. Do you think this franchise is fatigued?
This franchise, you mean?
No, franchise, because we're fans of it. Do you think
not at
this
all.
franchise is fatigued?
No, not at all. Obviously, there's literally a to be concluded at the end of this movie. It would feel very incomplete without it. And it just shows you that there's a lot of fun still to be had with the concept of Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. So definitely looking forward to more. Glad there are more than just 2 Back to the Future movies. What about you?
I agree 100%. This is Back to the Future 3 is something that I would definitely want to come out, even if I didn't know it was coming out. Even if they didn't say concluded, I think they could have a lot of fun. Even if they had wrapped this up in a nice little bow where he got home, I think I could have been yeah, let's do a 3rd one.
Mm-hmm. All righty, Brandon. Well, next question.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 5 gigawatts, how many gigawatts do you give Back to the Future Part 2?
You may think that I was probably pretty harsh on it, but I'd give it 4. 4 out of 5 gigawatts on this one. It's definitely, I mentioned why I didn't think it held up to 5 from the original, but it's still a lot of fun to watch. And if you're just watching it for fun, all the nitpicks that I pointed out don't matter. It is a lot of fun, and it's a good 2-hour romp, and I would definitely want to watch it again sometime soon. How about you?
I agree. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 gigawatts as well. It is a step down from the first movie, but that is a perfect movie. I mean, that's a hard act to follow, right? And this is the one that I loved most as a kid. I think just because they went so many different places, and it was oh man, it's the first movie inside the second movie, and that's some great stuff, right? And they could have done something lazy like we were saying earlier, well, we're going to go to the 60s because that's 10 years after the 50s and do the parents thing again. I'm so glad they didn't do that. That would have been a much less ambitious story. I'm glad they didn't go that way. So, yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. It's great fun, and as you said, these are not these plot holes. We're just nitpicking. They're not deal breakers. This is a fun fantasy, comedy, adventure movie, and 4 out of 5 gigawatts for me.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, right on. Well, I'm looking forward to Part 3. It will be coming up to you shortly here, and it's really cool because we are actually rapidly approaching the 30th anniversary of this film, just a few days after this releases, this episode here. 30th anniversary of Part 3 is coming up on the 25th of May. Isn't that pretty cool?
That is cool.
Yeah. But that's all we got for now. Zach, where can people find you when you're not making your pizza larger than it should be?
As for me, you can find me personally on Twitter at MoronZach. That's MooreOnzach. I'm also the host of another podcast, Always Hold On to Smallville, where we talk about each and every episode of that Young Superman show. You can find us over on Twitter at Always Smallville with 1 S. And Brandon, we aren't reading a sports almanac with statistics that go to the end of the century. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. You can find me over on Trek FM with a show called The Line, which is all about Star Trek Picard. And you can find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom. We have a show called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, and it covers all of the wonderful films of Hitchcock in chronological order. And also coming up sometime this summer, we're not quite sure when, we got a whole bunch of episodes recorded. I'm going to mention it now. If you've been following me on Twitter, you'd see recently I've been posting a lot of David Fincher posters for his movie, for all of his movies. And my good friends Tristan Riddell and John Mills and I are going to be doing a show called House of Fincher, and it's going to be coming out on the Nerd Party Network leading up to David Fincher's new film, Mank, which is going to be coming to Netflix. And we got 9 episodes recorded already. There's only going to be a 15-episode run, but it's been a whole heck of a lot of fun. But I would like to thank the executive producers of the network, Ken Tripp and Tony Robinson. Thank you so much for all you do. Zach Tripp, thank you so much for creating our wonderful theme music. And for you listeners, we would greatly appreciate if you could rate and review the show. And if you want to support us on Patreon, we have monthly commentaries for you, where Zach and I do an audio commentary for a Star Trek episode. And that's available at a low, low price of $5 per month. Until next time, when we cover Back to the Future 3, we are currently out of time.
This is heavy.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.